Welcome to the
Welcome.
Venus Report. So this is our podcast, our conversational podcast, where we talk about the astrological weather, the astrological happenings, and we're bringing a sort of Venus-themed frequency into these conversations.
This will be a conversation every 2 weeks where we will pull the charts and riff on what we see with Venus, but then we'll also riff on what we see elsewhere, some important things that we think are going to be affecting us here on Earth, and how we've both experienced those transits in our lives.
Yeah, we are really excited to just start riffing about astrology because we've been interested in it for a long time in our different realms and lives. So I think we should give each other some intros. So Liz, tell me about what you do and how you got into astrology.
Yes. So my name is Liz. I am a freelancer as well as I work in marketing the other half of the time. What I do in my freelance life is what I want to do for my main gig eventually. And that is being a photographer, a videographer, graphic designer, herbalist, seasonality guide, and also a music producer. So I do a lot of things right now. I just developed my own YouTube channel on one of these gigs that I do. I'll get more into that as we go, but I see myself as just kind of this multifaceted, interested in all things media, art, creative arts, as in astrology. And I find that astrology is actually one of the most important things in my day-to-day as I go about my life and as I discover more about who I am and why I go through certain pitfalls and challenges, but also happy times and things like that. So that is me. Kate, let's hear your intro.
Yeah, so I have been involved in, I guess, wellness for a long time. I studied outdoor education and experiential ed in college. And that led me to living in Southeast Asia, teaching English for like about a year in Thailand. And then I discovered yoga and Buddhism. I was right in the center of it all. I went to Nepal and hiked in the Himalayas. And that part of my life totally shifted everything. I started teaching yoga after I came back, and I've been teaching yoga now for 9 years, and now I'm really involved in trauma resolution and somatic therapy. I'm a somatic therapist currently, and I'm getting my certification in biofeedback, which is a fascinating way to measure your heart rate, your breath, and all these like biomarkers of health. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm doing so many different things. I've been studying astrology, like self-studying it for a long time. And I've just noticed certain transits in my life that have been undeniably marked by like events that have really happened. So the major thing about astrology for me is that when I lived in Thailand, I realized when I came back, I got into astrocartography, and I looked at my astrocartography chart and realized that in Thailand, I was placed at this random town to teach English to school. And that town was right on my Mars descendant line, like right on it. Like my Mars line ran right through that town. And it was interesting because I had such an activating experience with the people who I made relationships with. And I felt really energetic when I was there. And I was like, go-getter. Like something in me came out. And that kind of like, it was so many other things that sparked it for me, but that kind of sparked my interest in astrology. But yeah, that's my story. And me and Liz are sisters, so we know a lot about each other, but I will give us a little bit of background into like how we got into astrology. So I'll say it from my view, and then Liz, you can say it from your point of view. So our mom used to be really into like palm reading, astrology, psychic mediums, mediumship, tarot cards. she was like closeted into it. She was really like, I could tell, she was into it, but it wasn't like really outward facing. And I remember finding like a book about astrology, and I think it was called The Only Astrology Book You Would Ever Need or something, on the coffee table some at some point. And I started reading it, and I was like, whoa, I'm a Scorpio sun. What does that mean? Looking into all of that. And then ever since then, my mom, she was always interested in astrology, and she would kind of give us like mini readings, but it was less about astrology. It was more like, kind of not like psychic, but intuitive readings, like about our friends and about like our lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What do you?
Yeah, I've always felt that she had like this. I mean, we know now that it's her Mars conjunct Moon, but she just had this, which rules her life in a lot of ways. She just had, a quick sense on people, and she was also very expressive about it. So it felt more just like natural for her to just be like, what is this about? When something would happen between, like, I don't even know. And I just feel like she was on all of it, but like we just both were like, how do you know? And so, yeah, I feel like my experience is very similar to yours. It was that book. It was like she always had like not artsy, like spirituality things. Like I remember her kaleidoscope collection, and I was always just like, this is a pretty weird collection, but just to have that as an interest, I feel like says something about her. And then, the book was there, and it came with a CD, and you could download your chart, right? It was something with the CD, you could download your chart. So like when we were young, we like saw charts. And I feel like this is true for a lot of astrologers, but also just people when they see their chart, and the more you look at it, the more you find certain things, because I almost find that like your chart is alive with you, because you aren't supposed to know everything and what everything means the first time you look at it, or the first time you even see it at the time you are in your life. Like things will just come up, and you'll be like, oh my God, that's why my Pluto in the first house makes me experience all of these things about myself, or like things like that. But yeah, I feel like that was definitely the start of our interest. And I think we both kind of like went into our certain like ways with it, but it was all the same thing. It was like, I found a big interest in tarot like 2 years ago, and my older sister here just always was the influence of my interests at a base level. And yeah, this is probably the most, I feel like if we had a diagram of each other, and you know how it's like the two circles and then like the middle, like astrology is like probably top the list in the middle of like our interests or whatever that is.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love that description of like the Venn diagram. There's like Kate and Liz, and then there's the crossover. There are
we have a lot of crossover, but
we do. And I think that's another thing that's special about like our relationship, is that we talk about these things that are so esoteric in nature, but talking about it with you makes it so grounded, because we both ask each other like, hey, did you experience this like Venus-Pluto conjunction in this way? Because I was having a lot of relationship shit come up, and we like deep with each other about specific astrological things that we know are happening. Like we are by no means like, pro astrologers.
Yeah.
I call myself an astrologer because I study the movement of the planets and how they affect us on Earth and me in my life.
And it's so. Sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but I would say you're definitely not like beginner, but I think you and I know a lot. But yeah, like Kate does birth chart readings for people local to her, and I think a lot of people get a lot of benefit out of what you do. And you also incorporate your thing with it, which is what you study in somatics, which I think is really like, it's different. It's a different kind that you don't really see often in other astrologers. And yeah, just want to put that out there. She's being humble. She's really good at this stuff.
Thanks. Thanks, Liz. And I love like how we both approach it differently. Like Liz makes these beautiful calendars. Like I have one above my desk right now. And she just has this understanding about astrology. Like she understands like the modality and the element and the seasonality of like how they weave together. And I think that's such a beautiful like interpretation of astrology. How it relates to seasonality and how it relates to herbs and like health and herbalism. There's just so many threads that we could pick up and go in so many directions. Yeah. But I think on this like episode, I want to just give like a premise for like what we're going to be talking about on the Venus report. And why did we choose Venus? Do we want to go there? Why did we choose Venus?
Yeah. Okay. I'll say my thing first, because I think we both had a initial thing about it. But yeah, I would say the Venus report to me, in ancient astrology, sisters was represented by Venus in a lot of ways. Like ancient astrologers would see Venus in a transit somehow, and somehow something with siblings or sisters would come about. And that was just like a basic fact that I found out, and I was like, okay, I love Venus. But then it came the aesthetic part of it, and this is what like where I want to send it your way, because it was very much like when you see the old paintings of like the woman and the femininity, but also like the values. And I think to you and I, values and like not like just the way that we have had our journey kind of go through, like how our values have changed and how we come up with resources and things like that. Like we are in our age of like developing and building that value system. So I just feel like that also obviously values is ruled by Venus. So I thought that was also pretty together, pretty accurate. Okay, but yeah, you say what it was.
I love that. When I think of Venus, I do think of aesthetics, right? Venus, Taurus, Libra, like, Venus is at home in Taurus and Libra in astrology. And when you think of those two signs, you think of like sensuality and earth and air. And like the image of Venus, the Renaissance art image of Venus being birthed out of a shell with like her long hair covering her body and like her arm over her breasts. And like, she's just this beautiful, like luscious woman or like archetype, right? She doesn't have to be specific, but she's an archetype. And I think with Venus, it can represent so many different things that have to do with like aesthetic, but a little bit deeper than just like the surface level, like how you look. It's really about beauty and like seeking beauty. And also like the water element of Venus, even though like she rules earth and air signs, the water element of like being birthed out of that shell is like emotionality. And I think it just brings in so many things that are important in my life and in your life, like you explained.
Yeah.
And beauty. I have Libra on my MC. Like my dharma has to do with like seeking beauty, seeking spaces that make me feel like sensually connected to the earth and connected to my surroundings. And something that I teach a lot in somatics and where I see the crossover is this practice called orienting, where it's a nervous system regulation practice where you simply like take your eyes, you sit in a space and you look around your space and you search for colors. Well, you're not searching. You're like allowing the images, the colors, the plants, whatever's around you to like come to your eyeballs, and you're like meeting it halfway. You're not like searching for it. You're just like absorbing the beauty of the space that you're in. And if you're in a space that doesn't like any joy or beauty, then that's okay too. But where I see somatics cross over with like the aesthetics of Venus and Taurus and the sensuality of Taurus is like it's deeply regulating. It feels regulating for my nervous system. And I know this for other people too, that like when you look at a plant or when you look at something that makes you feel like calm, like an image that you drew, or like a calendar that makes you feel like joy when you look at it. It's like the power of those aesthetic symbols that surround your day-to-day life, like Taurus vibes, that can deeply like regulate you. And I think throughout the pandemic, a lot of people were like realizing that maybe their space, their homes that they were in, like didn't necessarily bring them much joy. So people were like, okay, I'm going to start to buy plants, like plant pets. Like, I got a dog. Like, do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I was going to say I had one thing about the Venus thing, what you were saying about the rulership, but Venus is also what I think important to say is Venus is exalted in Pisces, which is like, I find, I love me a Venus Pisces or a Pisces Venus or an Aries Venus. I just, something about that time of the year with Venus to me just feels very like, almost like rejuvenating, beautiful, disastrous, but like beautiful. And I don't know how else to explain it, but it's one of my favorites. But yeah, I love how she's exalted in Pisces, but then she rules like the bull and the balance of life, and just she has like different parts of her that come together. But I was gonna also say, I think we should tell people what our rising sun and moon signs are.
Yeah.
And anything else in our chart that we think could... Yeah. And our Venus. Yeah, exactly. Perfect. So you go first.
Cool. There's one thing I wanted to say before that was, the Pisces. When Venus is in Pisces, what sun sign is it? Because something that we'll talk about here is that Venus is always, or most of the time, always one sign ahead of the sun. So right now, we're in Capricorn season. It'll be Aquarius season on Friday. But it's the 18th of January right now, 2023. Venus is in Aquarius, and the sun is one behind it, so it's in Capricorn.
Yeah. So that will be a theme moving forward in certain ways. We want to kind of capture the theme of Aquarius as she moves through Aquarius, and maybe just riff on some Aquarius themes that we've seen in our day-to-day or in our life.
Yeah. Okay. So sun sign. For me, my sun sign is Scorpio. I'm a Sagittarius moon and a Capricorn rising. And I have Venus conjunct my moon in Sagittarius.
Every time I hear that, I'm always just like,
yeah, the Venus
conjunct.
Venus and moon conjunct is an interesting one. But what are yours?
I am a Cancer moon. I'm a Cancer sun too. I don't know why moon just comes first. Cancer moon, Cancer sun. So I'm a new moon baby. I think it was actually right after the new moon. And I'm a Scorpio rising. And I have Venus in a stellium in Gemini, right next to Mercury. So my sun, moon, Venus, and Mercury are all together in the 8th house on the Gemini Cancer axis. So I have quite a lot of Gemini and early Cancer energy, young Cancer, old Gemini energy in me. And I feel like that definitely comes out in my communication. I definitely have noticed throughout my life that I have a lot of nervous energy. Like I find ways that I have to like regulate my nervous system, which in turn regulates my like digestion and things. Like I feel like it definitely because it's like And that's funny that I just said that, because now I'm like, oh, Cancer stomach. If you're nervous because of Gemini energy, Cancer will all be like, do you know what I mean? Just how nervous energy can live in your body. I find it like it's like a lot of like in here, like so. Yeah, and then Scorpio rising and Pluto in the first house. So transformation.
Yeah, Scorpio rising. I love that. I can totally see that for you.
Yeah, and I feel like it's been a huge thing about how we relate to each other too. Like, Scorpio way that we talk is a lot deeper than if people just. I mean, our mom says this all the time, but like when you hear a conversation between Kate and I, like sometimes we're just like, what are they talking about? It's just it's already too deep. We don't really go surface level.
No, it's like it's kind of like tragic. Not really tragic, but it's just like we just get right to the whatever's going on.
Yeah. No fluff.
Yeah. No. I would love to do like a synastry chart between us and see like I mean, like I've never done that before. But okay, so to clarify, your Venus is in Gemini, my Venus in Sag. So we have an axis there. We have an axis. So we have like an opposition. If we did a synastry, and for those of you listening who are like, what's that? Sagittarius and Gemini are opposites on the zodiac. So every sign has its opposite because of the wheel. I also
we're both mutable.
Yeah, and my nodes are on the Gemini Sag axis.
Your nodes are on the Gemini Sag axis?
Sag axis. Yeah, so Gemini Sag, we could talk about the Gemini Sag axis, or we could just go ahead and just riff on something else. But
I say, like, that's kind of cool. Maybe next time that should be the basis of what we talk about. Like, I know we're not really in those seasons right now, but like, that's just a cool thing to talk about with us, because we are talking, if we are talking Venus, we're talking our mutable air, fire energy.
Yeah. It's just
that would be a cool thing.
This just shows how many different directions we could go. But right now, since today is the 18th of January, we're going to drop a podcast every 2 weeks.
Yes.
So right now, what should we be looking for? Where, like, you know, where Venus is right now? What is that saying about like the current like discourse or the current feeling around beauty, maybe?
I'm looking at the chart right now. And Venus right now is in a very loose conjunction with Saturn. They're probably getting further apart. Or no, she's actually moving closer, so I believe. So that actually might be coming up. But like obviously I have to take into account that this is not the right house for everybody. So right now, Aquarius, I would say from Aquarius to Aries is very active right now. So like there's 2 planets in Pisces, there's 2 planets in Aquarius. There's actually the moon will be in Aquarius very soon. Chiron in Aries. So I don't know, when it comes to like Aquarius, Pisces axis, like that transition, what do you think of, and how does that relate to maybe Saturn? But Saturn's right there too.
So like the Aquarius Pisces like conjunct, like that moment of like switching from Aquarius to Pisces,
or just like any insights on just like that switch over, what you see in an old Aquarius versus a young Pisces planet.
Yeah, so it immediately makes me think about, so Saturn, this year, Saturn is moving into Pisces. So we are going to feel that shift in energy from old Aquarius to early Pisces. And what I think about just in general, like you can look at your chart at home and just like see what, maybe if you have any planets in late Aquarius, because that's where we're at right now, sort of talking about Venus. We're talking about Venus and Saturn right now that are in late Aquarius, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I would say Venus is like right on the cusp of, like, I tend to, I don't know if you do this, I tend to look at the constellations as literally the day of the month, because if they all have 30 degrees, then we're literally talking about kind of like, I know it's off in the month, but it's still like a day is 1 degree. That's kind of like, I don't know if that's my easy way of just interpreting something that may not be accurate, but like if Venus is at 19 degrees of Aquarius, that's like the 19th of, I don't know if that actually works out, but like the 19th of a month, which would be
I don't know, because that makes sense, because it's the 18th. So like Venus is just kind of going day by day, moving through each degree of the sign. So we could definitely say that Venus moves 1 degree each day, and there are 30 degrees in each sign. Therefore, Venus takes about a month to move into a new sign. So we're coming towards the end. Go ahead.
I was going to say, it's not exactly a month away from the sun, but it's almost. So right now the sun is at 28 degrees of Capricorn. So Venus is not at 28 degrees of Aquarius yet. So it's almost like, it's like a little bit less than where the sun moves, but that's a really good pointer if you're ever like wondering, like if you're at the end of a month in like the sun, obviously with the sun sign, you can probably say, yeah, Venus is in Aquarius or whatever the next constellation is that you're in.
Yeah, that's amazing. So as I look at the chart, we're talking about old Aquarius and like new Pisces. I think of old Aquarius like a person. Think of it as like an archetype or a person that is like developing something technological, like they're innovating, and something with technology is being birthed through the end of Aquarius. So when a planet is moving through the end of Aquarius, it's like a planet. When I think of a planet like moving past like the 28th, 29th, like those last degrees of a sign, I feel like something is birthed, like something is birthed through the sign and planet energy. So when I think of end of Aquarius, it's like, okay, there's a new technological advancement, or something's being birthed. And then in Pisces, when it enters Pisces, there's this like dissipation of all of the like the systems and structures that were like built up to make whatever that innovation was. And then Pisces is like, okay, it's back to like the cosmic soup of it all. Like I think of like the quantum field when I think of Pisces. And it's this like merging with all things around you. I think of like your hands moving around the air and like feeling the subatomic particles and knowing that you're literally made up of the same thing, that the air that you breathe. Like that's what I think about when I think of Aquarius to Pisces.
Yeah, that's pretty close to what I think of. So with Aquarius energy and like a late Aquarius energy, I think about like a very, this is like an archetype maybe in a person, and it's not based on anybody I know. I'm just thinking about like, I do actually tend to like, when I meet somebody like, and I happen to know their birthday, I do take note in my head, like certain things, but this is not based on one person. But if this were like, it's like the person that I see this as is somebody who is a bit like off and like a bit doesn't really fit in and never really has, and is like extremely either artistic or extremely individualistic in what they believe in. And therefore they're almost seen as like their own type of pioneer in whatever their pursuit is. And because they're so late in Aquarius, they have a quality that's a bit like almost just, it's like I like to explain things in the planet. So I want to say like Uranian and Neptunian, but I'll get more specific. Yeah. I see it as like the merging of like this dreamscape world and like somebody who's really quiet and like observant with like that old revolution of a standpoint. So it's like where that meets the process of dreams. It almost, now that I'm thinking about it, it's like, okay, so this is like fixed air meets mutable water. So it's like somebody that just like is like, I think this way, and I think this is how all of it. It's not that they're like, I think this is how it should be, but it's just like a very strong hearted or strong, like revolutionary energy needing something that's really, really fluid. And so it's like something that's pretty defined, but not really, almost, because it's air and you're still in the idea space. You're still like conceptualizing and you're still idolizing, even though it's Uranus. It still has qualities that are a bit Jupiterian in the sense that it's like idealistic and like thinking like in terms of like this is how it should be, and it's like this is what it should bring in fortune, and but then it meets the dreamscape of life and the spiritual unseen things. So it's hard to like I find now that I'm thinking about it, like Aquarius into Pisces, Aquarius to me, I think you know this, has always felt hard to define because it's on my IC, and I don't know if that has anything to do with that, but Aquarius energy to me has been harder to define and like navigate, but Pisces I feel very comfortable with. I'm also about to go through my Saturn return in Pisces, so I think that's coming up in like 2 years, 1 year, 1.5 years. So, but yeah. Oh, and it's probably worth it to say that Saturn is the ancient ruler of Aquarius. So I've seen this time of year as we are entering Aquarius from Capricorn as very obviously Saturnian and inward and like dealing mindfully with the challenges we've accumulated in life and like over time, and how that can be of benefit and advancement to us for the summer. The summer of our lives, I should say. I speak in symbols, not literally summer, but
for the summer of our lives. Yeah. I like looking at each sign as like a mutable or like whatever modality it is, an element. So with Aquarius and Venus being in Aquarius right now, there's this like Venusian, love, beauty, pleasure, this feeling of passion in the sign of fixed air. So think about like hard ideas when it comes to love, or hard ideas about like what relationships look like, what your values are. This is like a good time, I think, to solidify what your value set is, and like how you live by your values in a way that feels Aquarian. It feels like regenerative, which is a word that's being thrown around a lot, but like I really think that that's Aquarian. It's like it's not extractive from the environment and from people on Earth. It's more of like it helps build up communities, and that's Aquarian to me. And when we're talking about Venus, we're talking a lot about values, right? Second house, money, finances, and how we like make a living, and what we own are like possessions. Venus can be like so many of those things too that are materialistic, but that are like almost symbols to our spirituality, and like how we can be living in the material world and, and make money. This is also my philosophy of life too, but like, this is why I like to talk about it in the lens of astrology, because you can kind of like weave it into other parts of life. I guess what I'm trying to say is like Venus and Aquarius, get clear on your values and how you can really live a life where you can like live by those values, because sometimes we don't. Like we say we value like sustainability, or we say we value relationships or freedom, yet we're working at like a dead end job and we have no freedom, right? And there's like that disconnect. I think Venus being in an air sign that's fixed is like asking us to get really clear on like what our values are. And then when it comes to Pisces season, it's like, okay, what are we going to do in this realm, in this spirit world? Like, are we going to make these dreams a reality? Let's like sit in that for a moment. And then, as we go throughout the year, and then Venus goes into Aries, there's this like activation of, okay, what's the new actions I'm going to take? And that,
and
around the springtime, it'll be like, what are these new actions I'm taking?
And what you said, remember earlier how you said the ending of a constellation, you feel like something is birthed? Well, maybe that's because Venus is also like at the end of her cycle in something too. Like that could be very, very connected. I don't know why I sometimes feel like Venus and the sun are connected in certain ways because they Venus like kind of makes the way for the sun from our perspective, obviously not in real time. But I was also going to say that I believe I'm correct on this, but Venus and Uranus, which is the modern day ruler of Aquarius, are the only planets that move the opposite way on their axis than all the other planets.
I don't know that.
And that doesn't mean anything to like astrology, but I'm just saying that it's kind of cool that Venus in Aquarius almost has like this natural play on each other. And it's like, I feel when you're in a fixed air sign, which is Aquarius, with the modern day ruler of Aquarius being Uranus, you're also looking to have out of the box thinking on a spontaneous drive almost. So what you said about getting clear, that's definitely a thing. I also think what could be beneficial to people who are going to do that and take that on is being a little bit like spontaneous, not spontaneous. That's not the right word. I mean, almost like out of the box in a sense where you're almost like afraid. You're like, oh no, I don't mean that. I don't want it to go that far, but like go that far because that's what Aquarius wants you to do. Aquarius wants you to be like outward and weird. And because when you think about Aquarius on its way to Pisces, Pisces is like borderline, I would say arguably the most, I just always see Pisces as all in one. Like it's like the most of everything. So it's like every sign on crack in Pisces, but it only comes out when, I don't know, Pisces people can come off as like so many different ways. And Aquarius, I feel like is literally preparing you for Pisces. And that's how I feel like all the signs progress. Like Capricorn prepares us for Aquarius because Aquarius can get a little weird, but Capricorns are very serious. So it's like once you're done with being serious, you get into Aquarius and you're like, okay, now I can like actually take these ideas and maybe get like creative with it and get weird and like, and just like go against the grain. But then when we're talking about Pisces, you want to definitely get out of your box of thinking because Pisces is going to make you dissipate into all of what is. So you might as well just prepare for that.
Yeah. I love like the progression of the story of the zodiac, which I've heard before is like told as a story where like Aries is the initial spark and it's just like literally the Big Bang. That's like boom, like everything begins. That's Aries energy. It's like fucking explosive. And, it can come out in whatever way. And I always encourage people to like look at Aries in their chart to see like where they can feel like where they can be like explosive and like impulsive.
Where is Aries in your chart?
On my IC. So in my 4th house.
Oh, wow.
And it's interesting.
You have Mars in Cancer.
Yeah.
That just made me think of Mars in Cancer and how you have wow.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. And from other astrologers, I always hear that the 4th house rules like your childhood and where you came from. And it's interesting because we came from a similar childhood. We came from the same home. And my experience, according to my birth chart, had some Aries. Yours has Aquarius, right? You have Aquarius on your fourth house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's interesting to just see like the differences between like how we experienced our childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And I know mine, like I feel like when I know something about a house, I try to like look for maybe what was Aries in my childhood. But I do know that like, being active was so important to me, and like swimming every day in the pool was like just like a really good thing. And I think bodily movement, like I was a dancer, I was like a softball player, gymnast, and that was really important. My body movement, and
oh my
and
God,
then I would like have that schedule going on.
Yeah, and you know what's funny? Do you remember when I was young? I would like just leave if I wanted to. I was like, no, I'm not going to play with you guys anymore. I'm just going to go inside. And everyone's like, what are you doing? Like, hang out with us. And I was just like, no, I don't really feel like it anymore.
You were like, you had made the decision. You like made the decision right away in your brain, and you were like, yo, yeah, I'm going inside. And we were all like,
no,
why?
You guys were like, let's stay. But that's funny. That's definitely Aquarian for me.
Yeah, and like
that's so funny.
I can see it also like, perhaps being like staying in your room and like not meditating as a child, but like doing your own little meditation of like making your movies and doing whatever you were doing. You know,
I was utilizing technology a lot. I would run home from school and download music. And I would be on like the interwebs so much that like I just remember our parents being like, "Can you like come say hi to us?" And I'd be like, "There's too many things on the internet that are important.
I've got to make my live journal page.
I have to put HTML codes into my MySpace page." But yeah, and I feel like I definitely noticed the Aries in your childhood.
Interesting.
In certain ways, for sure.
Yeah. So interesting. So we're at about like an hour. This was our first ever recorded podcast. So Liz, you can say what you want after this, but we would love to hear like any feedback that y'all have and things that you want to know. Like we will definitely keep talking about what we know, and we'll talk about the upcoming transits for the 2-week period that we release the podcast. And we will definitely talk about big transits that are happening like in the year, because there's a lot happening in 2023. So I definitely want to talk about that, but we would love to know like what y'all want to know about astrology, how to read charts, or just anything like tarot, spirituality.
And we tend to, like I said, like I don't see myself as a professional astrologer, but I do study astrology and I've been doing it for a while. So if you're open to hearing just interpretations of astrology and open it, like even I wouldn't say like all of it could be advice, but even advice, just I like to interpret things in ways that can be like solution oriented too. So any feedback would help, and we will put all the links in the description of this. Links in the description. This will be on YouTube as well as Spotify. And we do have an email. It's called the venusreportpod@gmail.com if you have any questions as well. You can expect this every 2 weeks for now. And just all things astrology and sister conversations and some laughs. Yeah. We'll be laughing a lot because that's what we do. When we talk.
Well, thanks for listening. And
thank you
see
all
you
for
next time.
listening. Yeah. Bye.